ladies and gentlemen, I believe that we are live. Always have to check the audio before we start so that everything works perfectly fine. Let me know in the chat if everything sounds all right. Villa says hello. Welcome, guys. It's a pleasure to always have you here. All good. That's what I like to hear. No issues on the technical side. Look, we had a great discussion already going in the chat about people talking about the EU referendum. Very interesting. Well, anyways, there's plenty to talk about. So because my internet and my voice sounds clear, let's get right into it. So today we're going to be talking about, of course, as the video title suggests, or the live stream title suggests, we're going to be talking about the Moldovan presidential elections and the EU referendum that happened. And as many of you that are following right now know, it was very close. It was very nail-biting, I believe, especially for the people that went up or stayed up until the entire evening. From a no, I saw the articles already saying no, it's definitely going to be a no, to a yes with 0.4% margin, which was incredible, and definitely a happy time for people that want Moldova in the European Union. Hi from Romania. Hi from Gagauzia. Hello. It's great to all have you here. Okay, and of course, I'm not going to be doing that alone. First of all, with a piece of software we have here of our beautiful map. I believe this is from the government of Moldova itself, with the parliament or the referendum results and the presidential election results, to try and visualize a bit how it all is looking here. Hello, everyone. We have people from all over the European Union. You love to see it. Hi from the Czech Republic. Hi from Germany. Hi from Soroka, guys. Welcome. So we have honestly, everybody knows the Wikipedia article here, but it's very clear. So I thought it's useful to use it as a resource here. And then we have the map, and then we have an overview of all the parties. So, of course, I'm not going to be doing that alone. We have an incredible guest today with us too. First of all, I'm going to be talking with Iulia Sarivan, the Deutsche Welle correspondent for Moldova, and later on, we're going to be talking with Alexandru Eftode, the Radio Liberty Moldova director. So, two incredible guests and probably very knowledgeable about anything to do with Moldova, and hopefully a bit as well with their relationship with the European Union. But I'm very honored and happy to introduce Iulia Sarivan. Welcome to the show. How is it going?
Hello, thank you for your invitation, and I hope we'll have a really interesting conversation for your viewers, now mine too. So hello everyone. Let me say some things about me first, maybe.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
To introduce myself to your public. So my name is Iulia Sarivan. As Elliot said, I'm from Republic of Moldova, Chișinău, working here, living here. I raised in a small village from Republic of Moldova. I'm a journalist, working in this field like for 6 years, almost. And recently, like I'm a Deutsche Welle correspondent from Chișinău. Mostly I'm covering politics topics, but also social, and I think this is from me.
Yeah, wonderful. It's great to have you here, of course. So before we get into all the details and specifics, I was really wondering, what are your first reactions to these results? What are your first thoughts? I'm very curious to know.
So the biggest concern was more about the referendum than the presidential elections, because yesterday night was pretty tense because of the results. We didn't know if the referendum will pass or not, but as you know, or maybe you don't, but I'll tell you what for us is very important, this referendum especially, because It means we will have a smooth path, let's say like this, towards the European Union, as we are struggling now to join the European Union. So it was pretty intense, hard night, let's say like this, a lot of work. But in the end, the results, as you see, more than 50% for yes.
Yep. And it's quite the margin with 0.
Yes, neck to neck, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And throughout the night, if I'm correct, it was looking like no was going to come out on top. But throughout the night, apparently a lot of votes came in for yes.
Yep. Yes, they were from diaspora, actually.
Okay. Yeah, from outside of Moldova, right?
Yes, people from other countries, but Moldovans.
Okay, very good. I want to turn to the chat real quick. So for everyone, we would like to answer your questions, and I believe once we get into the actual questions, many more will follow. So I can't answer all of them. Unfortunately, we have limited time. So if you have your question that you really want answered, please make sure to tag us, first of all, with @EUMadeSimple. And if you really have a burning question, make sure to use the super chat function so that we will dedicate the time to answering your questions. Anyways, so me as an outsider, I haven't followed Moldovan politics for very long. So I was very curious if we look at the, let's say, the parties or like the candidates, who are the, let's say, the top 5 parties / people, because before really reading into all of the politics, I had no idea. Could you take us a bit into who these parties are, and of course the main players? So most people will probably know Sandu Maya, but anyways, yes, please go ahead.
But you can read. Let's go.
Yes, of course, but you can say a bit more.
Yes, Sandu is actual president right now, but she's also the candidate from the PAS party. Let me say you that PAS is a pro-European party. They are focused mostly on pro-European integration. This is like something very important for Sandu especially and her party, because she kind of promised to the people of Moldova that Republic of Moldova will be able to join European Union until 2030. So in a few years. What more? They are focused on anti-corruption and judicial reform. About this judicial reform, is very important to say that it's a very discussed subject on Brussels too. So let's say our partners are really keeping on an eye on how the government is implementing this judicial reform in Republic of Moldova. What else? Economic modernization and social welfare improvements. This is also something very important for them. So about Alexander Stoyanoglu, he will be in the second tour with Maya Sandu.
Yes, because they had the most votes, both of
yes.
them, right?
Yes, okay. yes. So he's the ex-general prosecutor of Republic of Moldova, and now he's running for the presidency from PSRM. Is a party, pro-Russian party policy, and hidden under sovereignty and neutrality, something like this. They are really for the neutrality of the Republic of Moldova. I could say anti-NATO or something like this. It's really, how I can say, sensitive subject.
Yeah. Okay. And is it correct that I read that he and a few others have boycotted the EU referendum as well?
Yes. Alexandru Stoyanoglu didn't vote for the referendum. He actually didn't touch the okay, I forgot the word.
The referendum?
The paper with the
Yes.
referendum.
Okay. Yeah.
He voted only for the presidency.
Okay.
And he said that he is boycotting the referendum because he's against European integration. Although he has a Romanian passport, which makes him a Romanian citizen. But
Yeah.
Romania is in the European Union, so Alexandru Eftode is a European citizen, let's say like this.
Yeah, you could say
if
it like
it
that.
makes
Yeah.
sense for you.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. But correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I read somewhere that he was boycotting it, yes, but he did say maybe as part of the Neutrality Act to say, I do see Moldova with a European future. Are you aware of, or is that just a facade?
Yes, but this statement came today.
I see.
So
okay.
He said he's boycotting the referendum yesterday, but he made this another statement, as you said, today. So
okay, interesting. All right. So those are the top two. Definitely, they will have a runoff. So for the people that don't know,
yes.
I believe in Moldova you need 50% of the vote in order to
plus
be
one. 50% plus one.
Plus one. Plus one. In order to get elected as president, and because no one reached that 50% threshold plus one, there will be a runoff, and that is, I believe, in 2 or 1 week.
2 weeks. No,
2 weeks.
in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yes. Also on Sunday.
Yeah. Okay. And then just to get an image of the third person here, we have I am going to butcher these names. Usatia Renato. With 13.8% of the vote. Is there anything that you can say about him? Of course, he's not going to be relevant in 2 weeks anymore, but just...
Yes. He was the mayor of Balts city. Balts is like, if I can say like this, north capital of Moldova, something like this.
Okay.
An important city from Republic of Moldova. What more about him? He was a long period in Russia, but he was very active on social media. He always had something to say about the politics in Moldova, about the politicians. And now, as you saw, he was running for the president. This is about him.
Okay, and what is his party? It says on Wikipedia, it says Our Party, but
yes, the name is Our Party.
Here, PN.
Yes, Our Party.
Socially conservative, and opposed to EU integration.
Like
okay, interesting. Okay, so that's very good to know that we know at least the three main players. There's a few questions from our live chat, which I would like to ask you as well. We see... okay, yeah, sure. Let's move to that topic. We have Norwegian Potato as username asks, what does Iulia see as the biggest obstacle moving forward with the EU application? So that, for the viewers, that means we're switching topics to the second voting that happened. So that was the referendum. But is there any obstacles that you see moving forward from now?
From now on, I think we can be pretty optimistic, like because we saw also today a lot of messages coming from abroad, from our external partners.
Yes.
Like from the president of the European Parliament or from the president of European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen and Roberta Metsola. They had today pretty strong statements and they congratulated Moldovan people and our current president about this referendum, about the results. Yes, they are not like they were expected, but it's a yes in the end.
Right. Yep.
And as we have this support, we can be pretty optimistic, and I don't know if we'll be a member of the European Union until 2030, but for now, at least, I'm sure we are on the right path.
Yes.
Towards
So maybe
the European Union.
Maybe it's good to tell people what the referendum actually was about, because obviously this referendum wasn't on should Moldova join, let's say, tomorrow, but it was.
No, yeah.
Go ahead. Can you explain what it was about?
Really shortly, the referendum was about if people of Moldova want the constitution to be modified in order for Moldova to access the European Union, to join the European Union, and make this our most important point. Let's say
goal.
like this in simple words. The most important goal.
Okay. Yes.
Something like this.
So,
but because this was important for our partners to see if they are supporting us, but I guess they wanted to see, or they needed to see, if people of Moldova want to join the European Union, and it's not only a political will. You know?
Yeah. Of course, to have a look at if the population also supports it.
Yes.
I would like to ask you a question a bit more specifically on this, because there have been messages from both the media and also the government itself, the presidency itself, that there was quite a large amount of, let's say, electoral interference or fraud, or let's say influence from outside actors, to call it nicely. What is your idea on that? Because there are reports that up to 300,000 people could have been bought for the results from this election. Please go ahead.
Yeah, this statement made my Sandu today, actually, on her. If her first briefing was after midnight, so today was the second one.
Yep.
In her second briefing, she said this. She said 300,000 votes were bought by an organized criminal group. She didn't name anyone, but what I can say is that only a few days before the elections, authorities announced about Russia's strong interference and attempt to pay people to vote against the referendum, and they did it with help of our fugitive oligarch, Iulia Sarivan. Also our authorities said that almost a network from almost 100 people were trained in Moscow and in Balkans to create destabilization in Republic of Moldova. So this is about Russia's interference. I think it was their goal for the referendum to not pass. But
yeah. Wait, can you still hear me?
Yes, I do.
Good. Okay. So sorry, my audio just glitched out for a moment there. All right. So there were statements of this election interference, and it was, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, there's about a 3 million population of Moldova itself. So that would mean 300,000 is roughly 10% of people, or at least are allegedly influenced directly with money by this oligarch, right? That sounds like, to me, it sounds like a lot, like a big surprise in this case, that almost 10%.
Our authorities said that this struggle of Russia costs it almost 100 million euros. But
Right.
of course, we don't know for sure the
Yeah.
numbers. And
is there, to your knowledge, any like public investigation or any
yes,
let's say charges that are being made?
yes, and my son also said today that our authorities should came up with more details, but I think they are still
Okay.
investigating, and they'll come up with updates.
Okay. So I would like to move back over again to the presidential elections because I'm very curious. Once again, as an outsider, it is difficult sometimes to know why people are voting for a certain person or for a certain party. Could you maybe tell us a little bit more about what topics were the main what were the main topics during this presidential election? What were the why did Moldovans go to vote? Obviously, next to the EU, because I believe that is obviously a big item when it comes to the referendum. But please.
I think the topics were almost the same, like in every elections.
Okay.
Because the situation, the political situation is a bit changed, but the economic one is still like rough.
Mm-hmm.
And the most discussed topics and used in the election campaign were, of course, about the salaries, the poverty. Pro-Russian parties had a whole campaign to denigrate the LGBT community also. Of course, our topic was about neutrality, as I said before.
Yep.
Sure, there were many false narratives about the European integration. So one of them was that if we manage to join the European Union, we will lose our national identity, which is false.
Right. There were quite a few, let's say, interesting messages surrounding the European Union, like flying the LGBTQ, like the Pride flag, was it 12 times a year or something like that? I saw an article saying that will happen if Moldova would join the European Union, which is obviously not true. Anyways, I'm going to turn to the audience here for a second because there's many questions and people are very interested in anything that's going on. Let's see here. This one is not very related to what we're talking about. What is the chance of all anti-EU parties joining forces to oppose Sandu on a second term? Or is there too much difference between the opposition parties, asks user Blue Cheese. Could you say a little bit about the opposition uniting against a term of Sandu again?
Yes, these are political predictions, which I can't really make, but I don't know if the electorate from PSRM, from Shore Group also. Yeah, okay.
Let's say hypothetically.
Hypothetically, if they are united.
Is
I
there
don't
such
know
a
if
move?
it could be a risk for Maya Sandu. But as you see, she has 42% of the voters. I mean, let's wait for the debates. We are really waiting to see the debates between Maya Sandu and her opponent Alexandru Stoyanoglu. And let's see what they will say, and then we could discuss about people's opinion in this regard.
So, so there's going to be some major debates in the coming days, because they are the two final.
They should
candidates.
Yeah, they should do it.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Thank you. Then there's a question from user HJVD. He asks, why was Transnistria allowed to vote with this election, or was the influence of this region? What is the influence of this region on the vote? So maybe for the people that don't know, should give us a very short background on Transnistria, because it's a bit of a special situation within Moldova, I believe. And then maybe we should answer the question, what was their influence during these elections and referendum?
Well, let me say first for him, her, that Transnistria is Republic of Moldova. Transnistria is not a separate country. People from Transnistria, they are Moldovans as well, and they have the right, as I have the right to vote. So we are all a big happy family, if I can say like this. I mean, we are together. We are one country. We are not separate countries for them to know, just to know. And also we were at some voting section on the elections day, and we actually spoke to people from that region, and you'll be surprised, but people from Transnistria also want to join the European Union, because we are starting to understand that the European Union is not something bad, and is actually something good for the economics, especially something good for the trades. This means also money. So
interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that. Okay, well, seeing as we are almost on the end of our time, I would like to ask you, is there anything that you would like to say, anything that you would like to shout out as we move on in a few minutes to our next guest?
I'd like to invite you to visit Republic of Moldova, all of you, because we are a small country with a big heart. So if you want, you have to come. You have to what to see. We have good food, good mood. But after the elections.
After the elections, okay. Well, it was great. I mean, I don't know if I can speak for everyone that is watching right now, but I would definitely want to visit Moldova. It is definitely on the top of my wish list. But we'll see. Maybe after the election. Okay, Iulia, I want to thank you very much, and have a great evening. I'm sure you need some rest after that long night of following the referendum.
Yes.
Okay.
You too. Thank you for inviting me.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, please do not go anywhere, because in about 5 minutes, we will have our second guest, which is, once again, for the people that missed it, Alexandru Eftode, and I am very bad at these names. He is the Radio Liberty Moldova director. So we have still plenty of to go. So any questions that you guys didn't get answered, my apologies, but please ask them to our next guest, because he will be equally as interesting. Let's see what I missed, because there are quite a few comments, and thank you all for your great questions already. Let's see. Joe Garister says, another thing they scare us is that joining EU, it would mean war with Russia. Is that the messaging that is going on inside of Moldova? That is interesting. Please, I'm also very curious, just personally, for any Moldovans that we currently have in a chat. What are your thoughts? What happened? Any feelings? Happy, sad? Looking forward to maybe EU membership in the future? I'm very curious. Please invite next time someone from Alpha TV. They are a specialist and political advisor. I think, if I'm not mistaken, No, okay, no Avo TV. I invited someone else. It was from another Moldovan broadcast, but fortunately or unfortunately, in your case, Joker Ister, only Deutsche Welle and Radio Liberty responded. So let's see. I don't see any Moldovan comments yet. NATO LGBTQ plus, interesting username, asks, why was this referendum necessary if it doesn't influence anything? It does definitely influence something, as the Moldovans voted on whether or not this should be amended in the constitution joining the European Union, and that will be put into the constitution that is their overall goal and, let's say, mission to make that happen. So I would say definitely more than nothing, definitely about something. Moldovan here, if the elections wouldn't be rigged, 65% plus would be pro-EU, says Doran. Yeah, I would be very interesting to see after all of it is said and done and the investigations have been concluded, to see how much actually the Russian or at least outside influence this vote, right? Because we have a very slim margin of 0.4 or 0.39%. John asks, how is the presidential second round expected? So we're going to have the two top candidates, and according to at least our guest, Sandu Maya has a very good chance of succeeding. I mean, she is already at 42%, 42.4%, right? So here we go. Okay, I believe our second guest will be joining soon. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with our second guest for tonight, and it is not just any guest. It is Alexandru Eftode, and you have to correct me if that is the wrong pronunciation, because I am not the best at pronouncing these names. He is the Moldova director for Radio Liberty, if I'm not mistaken, and it is a great pleasure to have him on the show. Alexandru, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. And yes, your pronunciation is good. My name is Alexandru Eftode. I lead the Moldovan service of Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty since 2022. But I have been with the organization on the radio for more than 20 years, first as a correspondent in Moldova, then as a bureau chief in Chisinau, that's the capital city of Moldova, and then I moved to the headquarters of the Radio Free Europe in Prague.
Mm-hmm.
So I have been doing journalism all my life. I started as a crime reporter at the end of the 90s, and then I became a politics correspondent, which some say was pretty much the same beat at that time, not much of a difference between the two beats, crime and politics in Moldova. So this is who I am in a few words.
Very good. It's very interesting, and it's honestly very, very cool to have you on the show, because you are exactly the person that we're looking for to answer all of these burning questions. Just for your information, it's a live stream, so we have a few live chatters as well. There are many people already commenting that they're very excited to have you on. And sometimes there will be a question from the chat. So if it's on topic, I will try to include it. So, but if you don't feel comfortable answering it, just feel free to say so. It's all good. So I would like to start out with just your initial reaction. Is it what you expected? What are your first thoughts after the final votes were counted this afternoon, if I'm not mistaken?
I spent all my night explaining to the colleagues from other countries, from other services, how Moldovans count votes. Because the Central Election Committee in Chisinau in Moldova, it is posting in real time the results as they come in and as they count them. And the Central Election Committee has been doing this for the last 15 years or so. And always at the beginning, when they start counting, the votes come from polling stations in Russia. Moldova has a diaspora in Russia, in the former Soviet Union. And at the beginning, you see the pro-Russian forces, pro-Russian parties really at the top.
I see.
And then, as the counting of the votes progresses throughout the night, you see them going down and the pro-Western forces coming up on top. So the votes, we knew the results then this morning at about 7 o'clock in Moldova, everything was clear. Maia Sandu, the current president, won the first round of presidential elections, and the yes vote in a referendum for Moldova joining the European Union won with a really slim, slim margin. So it was a sleepless night for me and for many other colleagues. It was a dramatic night, emotional, but we knew that this is going to happen. By the morning, we'll see a different result.
Okay. So it was an emotional roller coaster. However, it was expected that at least it will be a bit more balanced when
exactly.
The late night came.
All the polls in the last few months and the average of the polling data suggested that Maia Sandu may even win from the first round of the vote, and that in the referendum, a majority of Moldovans, about 60% or so, or even more, will say yes to changing the Moldovan constitution so that the country can join European Union. Yep. Even though this referendum was a little bit bizarre and the idea itself was a little bit strange. You do the referendum after you negotiate with the European Union, and when the negotiation is done, then you go to people and ask, would you like to join in these conditions?
Yep.
And now, as we say in Romanian, they sort of put the carriage in front of horses, right? First the referendum and then negotiations and so on.
Yeah, so a little bit deeper on that, a user in our live chat asks, a user named Villa asks, do we expect a higher turnout or a lower turnout, considering how different the results were to the opinion polls and considering the Russian interference? And that's a topic on its own, but we can dive deeper into that a bit later.
Yeah, we can talk about this Russian interference. When it comes to referendums, this is the second time that Moldova holds a constitutional referendum, which means the result has an impact on the constitution. The constitution needs to be changed if the yes vote prevails. The first time it was held in about 14 or 13 years ago, and the people were asked if they want to change the constitution so that the president of the country is elected directly in the popular vote. And that referendum failed because of the low turnout. This time, the turnout was pretty high for a referendum. People do not show up in the referendums. They often don't see the point, but the turnout was pretty high. If you look at the previous referendums in Moldova, if you compare it with what people said in the polls, is like not really low. But when a pollster comes to you and asks you, would you go to vote? Of course, people don't say I don't want to vote or whatever, do my duty, or so they would say yes. But then when it comes to the vote, they will not go many times.
Okay, interesting. There's another question about the turnout. A user Terminator 12 asks, I noticed the age group 66 and between 75 had by far the largest turnout. Is there a particular reason for this? I'm not sure if that data is correct, but let's assume it is. Why is it among the, let's say, older parts of the population that the turnout was higher?
People had to choose when they go to the polling stations, do they vote in presidential elections and the referendum or only in one of each.
Yep.
And I'm not sure which data your viewer is quoting on the referendum or on the elections, but
Okay.
Traditionally older people, they go to vote. Traditionally older people go to vote. They see it. They have more time. This is what is happening in Moldova forever. Older people, they go to polls and they often decide. Younger people do not, and then they complain. But yeah, this is a a thing that happened pretty much in all elections.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think in general, around at least for Europe, this what I can say is that the older generations, they tend to vote more. But was this this election together with the referendum, was it a big topic amongst younger people? Because I believe reading somewhere that it was a large issue among younger voters, especially the EU referendum. Could you say a bit more about that?
A lot of Moldovan voters, they don't actually reside in Moldova. Moldova
Right.
has a
Yep.
population, a small population, and a lot of its population emigrated, mostly in Europe. Many people were working in Russia, in Moscow, but since the start of the Russian aggression against Ukraine, and even before that, since the annexation of Crimea, they started coming back home and going towards west.
Yep.
So these people, they are sort of movers and shakers, young people, active people, and they live in Western countries. So if you look at the turnout and at who and how voted in the presidential elections and referendum in diaspora, you can see that the data are different, not 75, 65, 75 years old, but young people. I don't know how much of an issue this was amongst the young Moldovans who live in Moldova. They tend to be not that interested in politics. And they were not a target. I think that the PAS party, the governing party, the party of President Sandu, did not engage these voters. They thought that they have their vote. They didn't fire up these people to come to poll and say their opinion at the polling stations.
Okay.
So it's difficult to judge, but from what we see, the campaign was sort of lame. The government was saying Russia is meddling, buying up votes and stuff like that. But
Yep.
Okay, Russia is meddling, but Russia is talking to your people, to your population. And we didn't see from the government, from president, and from the side of things in the referendum, going amongst these people and talking to them and really engaging these voters. Yeah.
So this part was missing, this engagement with the people that are more likely or were going to vote no, in your opinion. You would have liked to see a bit more of, I guess, maybe discussion or maybe trying to include them in the process.
We didn't see politicians, pro-European politicians, pro-Western politicians engaging young voters. We saw them going in the countryside, talking to people living there. We never saw them talking with students in Chisinau, in other parts of the city. We just didn't. They assumed that these people are on social media and they will reach them on social media. But of course, they'll give a like to a post, but they will not go to vote afterwards. They think about their own immediate issues, not necessarily about the problems that politicians have.
Okay, that makes sense. We already mentioned it a few times, but I would like to hear your let's say analysis or opinion on the claims coming from the current government and also a few news organizations about the up to 300K votes being bought or being influenced, at least in some way, by Russia. could you say a little bit more about that? We talked about it with our previous guest. She mentioned a either exiled or at least disgraced oligarch fugitive. Yeah. What is your opinion on that?
We have been seeing protests in Chișinău, in Moldova, since 2022, organized by the Shore Party. This party is led by the fugitive oligarch Ilan Shore. He has been living in Israel, then he moved to Russia, but he is in hiding because he was convicted in Moldova for financial crimes.
Okay.
And he's organizing opposition against the current government from abroad. He created several parties in Moldova, and they started with the help of Russia, and that help was really clear in 2022 in the fall, when the prices of energy went up.
Yeah,
and like 300% in Moldova. And they wanted to bring people to protest in the streets to topple the pro-Western government. For Russia, it was important to have somebody in the back of Ukraine, a friend. And Moldova was not a friend of Russia at that time, and it's still not a friend of Russia today. So they started their actions against this government then. And a lot of journalists documented cases that they are paying people to come to the protests. It was assumed this time that they will be paying people to vote because the examples of buying votes we saw in Gagauzia. Gagauzia is a small autonomy in the south of Moldova, and they are always voting with pro-Russian parties. They never voted for Shore Party, and Shore has never been there holding political rallies before. There are cases, documented cases, and they're in courts right now that people have been paid in elections, in local elections in Gagauzia in 2022. Now, it was assumed that they will try to replicate the same thing at the scale of the entire country. There are few investigations by the prosecutor's office. The prosecutor's office said at the beginning of October that only in September alone they saw that Shore, through Russian banks and through some international schemes, because there are no direct relations between the banking system of Moldova and Russia, since Moldova joined the Western sanctions against Russia for invading Ukraine. They saw that Shore is sending money on various cards through various accounts to about they're sending about $15 million to a huge amount of people in Moldova. So this is what we know from the government and from the prosecutor's office. And then there have been a couple of investigations, journalists infiltrating these supporters of the fugitive oligarch, and they are openly discussing about getting money. But you can pay people to, like, your election staff or your staff. It's difficult to prove that there was anything like that. My son, the president of the country, after the election, after the first results came in last night, she took a huge pause, huge break, and then at 1 a.m. in the morning, she said that they have proofs that Russians and Shore paid 300,000 voters.
Yeah.
At that time, it seemed like the referendum was going to fail. I mean, the yes vote will fail. By the morning, the yes camp won. So right now, she's not talking about the fraud anymore, because that would mean invalidating the results.
I see. Okay. Yeah. So she stepped down the rhetoric of it being a fraud.
For sure, we have seen a lot of Russian involvement in terms of propaganda and information and manipulation every day, almost every day. The spokesperson of the foreign ministry in Russia, Maria Zakharova, was, seen speaking about Moldova, about the dictatorship in Moldova, and so on and so forth.
Yep.
We saw that a massive information campaign, and we saw it also on not on social media, on the messaging apps, Telegram, also on some Russian language apps on TikTok. But when it comes to buying voters, we don't know. We should see the results of the investigation.
I mean, to play a little bit of a devil's advocate here, of course, I have no doubt that there's definitely some interference going on, but it still probably remains that a large part of the population did vote no because that's what they believe, right? That's not everyone was bought for during these elections. What is the main motivation, or what is the main movement of these people to vote no in such an election? Because for me, as an outsider, which could be very naive, I always thought that the prospect of Moldova wanting to join the EU was pretty popular, at least from an outsider's perspective.
Yeah, I think the referendum was pretty. I mean, it was not the right moment. I mean, each people would like to vote to join the European Union, but they needed time to really understand what this means.
Okay.
And you have this time when you negotiate the joining the EU, and the negotiations take long, and the society gets used to what is going to be in the European Union. Right now, in a short amount of time, Russian propaganda used a series of narratives. It's not about buying votes. It's about saying that wealthy Europeans will come and buy your land, will take your land from you. Moldovans will go to the EU more freely, and the pro-European government will bring in their stead immigrants from Middle East, and they will settle in your houses. Or anti-LGBTQ propaganda and hate speech, a lot of it. So they found some sensitive topics, and they pushed and pushed and pushed in a really small amount of time. The voters in Moldova were bombarded with these messages.
Okay.
These messages were being spread not by Moscow directly. They were being spread by local politicians, by Dodon, that's the leader of Socialist Party, and the main supporter of the Alexander Stoyanoglu, who came in second in the elections, and a number of other candidates. They were going from village to village, from town to town, and talking to people and spreading this narrative. So I guess that this is one of the explanations. And what the government did, they said, Russia, 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 Russia. They are meddling, they are buying, they are doing this, and they are doing that. But they had to campaign. They had to simply campaign, which they didn't. We didn't see it that much. They said, Russia is buying you. It's sort of offensive in a way also, right? Yeah, I mean, they are buying you. You are just selling your future of your kids. I mean, this is not how you win elections. It's your people. You have to talk to these people and bring it on your side if you want to win.
That makes a lot of sense. Obviously, it's for someone that is convinced that apparently voting no is the way to go forward. Just calling them being bought will probably not convince them to go the other way, right? So, yeah, to me that makes perfect sense. Maybe moving on a bit from this topic. There's a user in the chat that seems to be maybe a bit, I want to say, confused or unsure about how the relationship within Moldova and Transnistria worked during this election. Because Lucas Caixero asks, why is Transnistria voting if they are not under quote-unquote Moldovan control? And how are there more people voting yes in Transnistria than other parts of Moldova, like the part you already mentioned in the south? Two questions in one.
Yeah. In Transnistria, they are not voting. I mean, Moldovan government doesn't control the territory. It doesn't open polling station there. They do not campaign. Moldovan political parties and politicians, they do not campaign in Transnistria. It's a breakaway region controlled by Russia. Russia has a military base over there. It's a piece of Soviet Union. What the government of Moldova does, they are opening the polling stations on the border. For Moldovan citizens residing in Transnistria. There are a lot of more than the numbers differ, but many people in Transnistria, they got Moldovan citizenship. They had the right to. I mean, they were born in Moldova before the separation of this region in the 1990s. So there are Moldovan citizens. They have the right to vote, and Moldovan government opened these polling stations along the border. So this is how it works. As of why people voted, I don't know. I didn't check the results in those polling stations, but
I think I'm sharing it on the screen right now. I believe you can see the screen as well, right? That I'm sharing.
Yes. Yeah.
Is this? I don't speak Maltese or
yeah.
This is so. This is 31% yes to the region that you mentioned. Gagauzia was only a 5%. So I believe, at least to my knowledge, Transnistria is.
The campaign was strong from Shor party. And from the opponents, and the Gagauzia is the place where they say Shor bought votes back in the local elections of 2022, and they use the same tactic now. But not from Transnistria, I guess.
No, yes, I think it might be a bit surprising because Transnistria is seen, at least once again from an outsider's perspective, as the region that is heavily, almost reliant on its relation with Russia. So you would almost expect that to be the region with the most no votes, but apparently that was Gagauzia. But yeah, because of the reasons that you told us already.
Yeah, when you look in terms of real numbers, the difference is not that big, but in terms of percentage, yes.
Yeah, true.
It's a good point. Thank you. Actually, I didn't see it, but it's a good tip actually to look into it more.
Yeah,
and it's a very good point. Yeah,
very interesting. I want to also cover a bit of the presidential election as well, right? Because that was the referendum wasn't the only thing that was being voted on for the past days. We have, of course, the three players that you already mentioned in some of your answers: Maya Sandu or Sandu Maya. I don't know which one the first name is.
Maya.
Maya. Okay, Maya Sandu. And the second biggest, Alexandru Stoyanoglu. Rough names. Thank you. But if we already discussed it a bit, but if I can understand correctly, there will be a second round in 2 weeks where these two will run off as the only option. So I know it is incredibly difficult to look in your proverbial crystal ball and predict the future, but I believe the viewers as well are very interested in seeing. Like what are the scenarios here? Is Maya Sandu like going to, or, well, it's difficult to say going to win, but I mean with 42% of the vote already, it looks like she's probably the favored. But I was curious if you could say anything about what happens if Alexandru Stoyanoglu gets the victory, or if Maya secures the term anyways, especially with the relations toward Europe.
Yeah, her margins are really thin. Everybody below Maya Sandu was campaigning against Maya Sandu.
Okay.
They are not campaigning against each other, but everybody against her. If you go down the list to the bottom, you can see two candidates, Năstase, the third from the bottom, and then the one above him, Țicu Octavian. So they have 1% and then there is the last guy, Ulianovski Tudor. So altogether they have like 2%. The voters of these candidates may go to Maya Sandu. Only voters of these candidates. But the big question is the third place, the kingmaker, right? On the third place. What is he gonna do? He was in the same situation in 2020. In 2020, Maia Sandu was running against the candidate of the socialists, Igor Dodon, not Alexandru Stoianoglu, but this is the same party, the same politicians. And Usatei was on the third in 2020 on the third place. He didn't tell his voters what to do. He said, just do whatever you think it's okay with you. And some voted for Maia Sandu, some voted for Dodon. Maia Sandu won in the second round in the runoff in 2020 because of huge support that he received in diaspora. So what we see from these results is that Maia Sandu has maybe 2 more percentage points from Moldova if she doesn't negotiate anything with the third candidate on the third place with Usatei, which I don't think she will negotiate. I mean, she's not negotiating with, she's not that kind of politician. But the only chance for her to win is to fire up her base, first of all, outside Moldova. People came to vote in diaspora in big numbers, but not in the biggest numbers. In 2020, more people came to vote in diaspora, and they voted more massively for her. So this is what her strategy needs to be to win, to fire up the base in diaspora, to go campaign. Diaspora is angry because they promised more things to diaspora, like inviting people back, giving them jobs, making easier for them to return, because a lot of people from diaspora, they are just working a lot and they would like to come back home. So they were promised changes so that they can return to a more prosperous country, and it's easy for them, and their expertise will be needed in the government and elsewhere, and this happen. So we'll see how Maia Sandu will be able, to convince these voters when the second before the runoff. This is the only chance for her.
So to summarize real quick for the viewers, you see these parties, the Octavian Tisu,
Octavian Țicu, Andrei Năstase, and Tudor Ulianovski.
These are the voters for them are most likely to go to Maia. Okay. There's a question in the chat from a user called Villa. He asks, can you ask him whether voters of Ion, let's see, I saw him just here, Kiku, where they were going, because he is of the or they are of the opinion that his party is a pro-European party.
Ion Kiku was campaigning. He says he's pro-EU, kind of. We have to negotiate with the EU, but it's bizarre because you cannot really negotiate with the EU, different conditions than from other countries. But maybe it can happen that some voters will go. But Ion Kiku is talking a lot against Maia Sandu. I mean, he's pro-EU, but he's against Maia Sandu. They, by the way, were colleagues in the university. She was president, he was prime minister. They didn't get along. He is talking. I don't see many of his voters voting for her.
I see. So they have a bit of a history together, so to speak, already. Okay. All right. So so the margin here is that, well, let's say if we're generous, we have...
And we're talking about short buying votes. And if this happened, these people voted for Fortuna Victoria. You see the above, and they voted for Vlah Irina.
The one above.
Yeah, these are, if the Moldovan voters were paid to vote for anybody, this their votes went to these two candidates, and maybe a little bit to Stoyanoglu as well.
And if is the reason for that they're most for the, let's say, neutral platform or more pro-Russia, or
no? These are candidates controlled by Ilan Shor, the fugitive oligarch.
I see. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it can happen that he told his supporters just vote for these two candidates, and then in the second round there will be a negotiation, and I suspect that all of them will vote for Stoyanoglu. So almost how much? 9% of votes plus for Stoyanoglu.
Yeah. So let's go into then the what that would mean for Moldova, because first of all, first let's talk about, in the case of that Maia Sandu does manage to win the second round, does that mean basically more of what we've already seen? Is that positive? Is that negative? Will that accelerate EU accession? Could you say anything about that?
Positive, yeah. The only Moldova is a parliamentary republic.
Yep.
The president has a mostly ceremonial role.
Yeah.
Except when the president also is the founder of the main party, right? That holds the absolute majority in the parliament. When she is a founder, she can control informally the policies of the government. But and this is the case with Maia Sandu. In Moldova, parliamentary elections are expected this next summer.
Yep.
So if Maia Sandu wins the second round and stays as president, we can expect that her party will also win, maybe not such a big majority as they have now, but will have a good result in the summer. Okay. If she loses, and that's important, that's the most important thing. If she loses, then the European integration will be slowed down. If Stoyanoglu wins, then the Socialist Party will be in a position to win the parliamentary elections next summer. And that means that Russia will have a friendly government behind Ukraine's lines.
Okay.
And the European integration will be stalled for many years.
All right. There's a few people in the chat that have just been joining us, so I want to have a quick recap. RJ asks, I just got here, can I get a quick recap, please? And Kaloyan Kamenov is asking, what are they voting for? Guys, we are talking about the presidential elections in Moldova and the EU referendum that happened. Currently, we're talking about the specifics on what will happen in the second round runoff, because that will happen between the top two candidates that you see on the screen here. What that might mean for the relationship to the European Union and the prospects of EU accession. So hopefully that's made it a little bit clearer. By the way, guys, we're nearing the end of the live stream. So if you have any burning questions, please make sure to ask them in the chat. Make sure to tag us so that we can see it easily. And if you really want your question to be answered, which there is no guarantee of, unfortunately, please use the super chat function so that you not only support us and our work, but you will get something in return, which is your burning question answered. Anyways, okay, so having said all that, Maia Sandu will probably then in the next parliamentary elections have a pretty good majority in parliament. If I'm recapping, if she wins now, or in 2 weeks, I mean, of course. Yeah. Is there a scenario? A user in our chat asks, is there a scenario where a pro-Russian party, so I guess the closest to that will be Alexander Stoyanoglu's party, if he wins now, is there still a chance, or is there still a scenario where Moldova can join the EU?
Yes. Remember, Moldova declared EU as its main foreign policy objective during the rule of the Communist Party, led by former President Vladimir Voronin. He came to power promising to take Moldova into the Russia-Belarus Union, and he ended up declaring European integration as his main foreign policy goal, because Russia wanted to solve the Transnistrian conflict in such a way that people from Transnistria will be brought in Chisinau and control and have a big say in how the entire country is ruled. So Voronin said no and turned to the EU, and they started implementing, close policies with the EU. There is a scenario that if the socialists win the elections next summer, there is a scenario in which the European integration will proceed, but in much slower pace. Maybe you will get tired. Voters in the EU will ask, why do we need Moldova if they don't want us? So there is a scenario, but the chances are really not, good.
Not good. Okay. Well, I guess in that case, having a majority in the referendum does help with the maybe legitimacy or perceived legitimacy, at least, of joining the European Union. So it would be, that combined with, I believe, our last guest told us that he said it today, but he said that even though he does not support the referendum, in fact, I think he boycotted it. He does support or see a European or a Moldovan European future. Is that a statement that you're familiar with, or?
Yeah, some voters, they say that the referendum right now was a way for Maya Sandu to campaign for herself and get more votes in the presidential elections. And some people didn't support the referendum. Anyways, I think that the results being so close, Moldova will have to do another referendum if Moldova negotiates with the EU before joining.
There are maybe, I say this lightly, without much conviction, but some people see a scenario, and this is far in the future, so I know any of the predictions or thoughts are with a grain of salt, let's say that because this election or this referendum was so close, some fear that if Moldova were to come into the European Union, you would have a similar state or a similar member to Hungary that is, as you might know, famous for blocking many of the EU legislation. Some are afraid of another EU skeptic member state that is going to help work against EU.
Let's acknowledge the elephant in the room, right? The war in Ukraine. If Russia wins there, everything changes completely. We'll not be talking about by Hungary in Moldova. We'll be talking about, I don't know, completely different things.
Of course.
Let's keep in mind that if Ukraine still holds, that's one thing. If it doesn't, then all that we spoke about tonight is not that relevant.
No. Okay. Okay. Yeah. No. Understood. It's very interesting, and of course, it makes sense. I hadn't really considered it, but it's a very good point to take into account that, of course, what happens in Ukraine will affect this region, probably one of the most inside of Europe. Okay. Well, I think we are nearing the end of our time, so I want to invite you to say anything, say any last words, any wishes, any thoughts. Please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I hope your audience enjoyed the discussion, and I'm surprised that people are still curious about what's going on in Moldova.
No, there's definitely a lot of people interested. There were also some comments saying that they're very grateful for you as a guest, and they were very excited. There's a user asking, will we talk after guest? No, we will close it after this. So in any case, thank you so much for joining. Alexandru, it was a pleasure to have you on. And of course, to the viewers, thank you very much for joining as well and for your great questions. So I think without further ado, we will call it an evening. Please, guys, make sure to like and leave a comment after, giving us your thoughts. Especially if you're from Moldova, we're very interested to hear what your opinions are on the results of this referendum. So if that is everything, then I'll say goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.